Hello, welcome to today's edition of the Academy. Today we're going to look at, again, Liddell Hart's book on strategy, looking at his second maxim. Now, before we get into it, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for subscribing, sticking around. If you haven't already, and you like what you see, please go ahead and take the opportunity now to share, like, and subscribe this video. And let me comment below, let me know what you think. Before the video ends, please, before you leave, please do comment and let me know thoughts you've had, and maybe if there's suggestions you might have for future videos. Okay, so let's go ahead and start looking at Liddell Hart's second maxim. Okay, all right. Maxim number 2 is keep your object always in mind. All right, very good advice. Okay, now let's read the whole paragraph here, because this is where it really becomes important. So keep your object or objective always in mind while adapting your plans to the circumstances. Realize that there are more ways than one of gaining an objective, but take heed that every objective should bear on the object, okay? And in considering possible objectives, weigh their possibility of attainment with their service to the objective. If attained, to wander down a side track is bad, but to reach a dead end is worse. Okay, so wording is there a little bit awkward, but let's kind of walk through what he's talking about from a tabletop perspective. Really, the first sentence is very good and ties very strongly into a lot of what we've heard if you've listened through my series on Sun Tzu. And you'll actually, as we go through more of these writers, you'll see the same kind of thread throughout. Because this isn't original to Liddell, but it's where he brings us something to consider, is the clarity. Boiling all these theories, there's 13 books in Sun Tzu's writing. Here he's only got 8 maxims, so it's a little easier to comprehend and get your mind around what Liddell's trying to bring. So he says, always keep your object in mind while adapting your plans to circumstances. The battle is going to make you change your plans. But you can't just change your plans in reaction to the things happening on the table. You need to change them in response to the things happening on the table so that you still obtain your objective. Now, he is adamant that there are more than one way to reach an objective, to secure it, to attain it. But he also says there's some ways are better than others, and that's what he means when he's saying, and in considering the possible objectives, weighing their chance of attainability. Which of the different objectives are you most likely to obtain, right? And which are kind of sidetracking you, or which may be a dead end. Now, let's look at the tabletop. There's a few ways to interpret this. Not interpret it, but a few ways to consider what he's saying in a very mathematical, cold, and calculated way. Let's look at that in that sense first. You have a situation on the tabletop where you have a clear objective. Your opponent has maybe the same objective, maybe not. Different systems have different ways of doing objectives. But your actions need to always be moving you toward that objective. Now, if your opponent throws a wrinkle in your plans, you need to modify your plans. But the plans need to still continue to move you forward toward that objective, either by movement or taking out an enemy unit or whatever, pinning him down, dislodging him, whatever. There's a whole bunch of ways that you may be able to obtain your objective, but your plans have to change. Now, where we can run afoul of sidetracks and dead ends is when our objective is clearly before us, but we get ourselves in a reactive mode, and here our opponent has decided to attack us in a certain way or do something that we may not have expected, and now we are threatened in a certain way, and our chances of attaining the objective have taken a hit. They're a little less than 100% now. So what do we do? Well, sometimes we get in a position emotionally where we react. and then we counter whatever just happened. We throw the weight of our force, the weight of our attention at this threat, right? Now, that's why this cool, calm, collected stuff is so important, because we do not want to do that. We do not want the reaction, the emotion. We want a response. And I've always made this kind of point with my fencing students. You do not want to react to your opponent. You want to be responding to your opponent. Your opponent's going to get the upper hand of you occasionally. But if you react, it's not something that is thought out. It's not calculated. It's almost a reflex, okay? Now, you want to be able to respond with some diligent thought. Now, here's the thing. If applying all of your effort to that one threat is going to distract you from getting closer to that goal, you need to reassess how you go about doing that, because you still need to get to the goal. Let's use an example to keep it relatively simple of needing to achieve kind of securing a point on the board. Let's use a king of the hill kind of example. And you have a portion of your army in one corner where it's there to support, and it's a very important piece of your. It's not the linchpin, but you know, if you lose it, your ability to hurt your opponent and push him around is going to be severely curtailed. So the opponent begins to threaten it, and so you turn all your attention to that, and everything moves and focuses on that. Now, what you should do, since you're trying to reach an objective ahead of you, is while you're applying pressure on this threat, you still need to be advancing your vehicles, your units, your forces toward the objective in line of sight, hopefully, of this threat, so they can still send fire down to hopefully rescue the threatened unit that you care so much about. Okay? Instead of just charging straight for it, putting you potentially out of position of reaching the objective by game's end. Okay, so that's what a simple example of calculating instead of reacting. Keeping the objective in mind. What do I need to accomplish in the game while still dealing with the threat that I have to deal with right now? That's going to change potentially turn by turn by turn. In fact, certain units may have these types of decisions to make. For example, if you have a unit, let's use an artillery spotter. Okay, he's in a particular location on the field. His presence he's in a position to draw fire down upon wherever target you want. He's important, yes, but he's not critical to your ability to prosecute this whole thing. He's just one of your units. But now there's a threat coming his way. You have a choice. You can either move him to pull him away from that threat, or you can leave him there so that he can continue to do his job. Okay? Well, you need to evaluate that. I don't know. There's no right answer that applies across the board. You have to look at the situation on the tabletop. How does that one unit contribute to the prosecution or attainment of that goal that you have, the objective you have? Now, if he's critical by providing, for example, smoke rounds to prevent the opponent from actually being able to shoot at you and threaten and damage the units that are trying to secure that objective, well, you might need to keep him around, especially if the objective isn't relatively out in the open, right? But you know what? If all he's there is to provide fire support and help interdict the enemy and cause trouble for the enemy, well, maybe you should just go ahead and move him back. Take him out for a turn so that he's not doing anything except moving. Get him out of position so that the threat's not as close. Maybe put something else between the two, the enemy and him, to make it even harder for the enemy to get there, to take out that spotter. Because the enemy, the reason he's threatening him is probably because the spotter's doing something to him. But the decision of what to do with that unit, including the possibility of sacrificing that unit, all has to come down to that cold calculation of what is going to make it most possible for me to attain the objective. Okay? So, look at it from a perspective of how do you use all of your units to, along the, to respond to what's going on. And look at it also as for each individual unit in its response to a threat, what should you do with it? Okay? So that's really what Liddell's trying to get around to in this particular one. Always keeping your objective in mind and always adjusting your plans to the circumstances so that you will still be able to attain that goal. Okay? Pretty simple, pretty clear. And I think you'll see that a lot of what Liddell talks about is almost seems basic, but it's amazing how often we forget this kind of stuff on the tabletop. So, again, if you haven't already, share, like, and subscribe, and please comment below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in next week's edition of the Academy, where we'll pick up again on the third Maxim. All right, thanks, bye.